It's your fault. Must have been something in your singing. Because while you were singing, the Holy Spirit said, put away your manuscript. Oh. And of course I said, yes. Oh, Lord. Okay, nothing like winging it on a Friday night after a long week.
I told you that was going to happen.
I watch everyone. So here's what the Holy Spirit said to say. There's just one message. Just one. Do not let fear stop you from saying yes to God. That's it. Do not let fear stop you, stop me, from saying yes to God. If there is one message I wish I could instill in the heart of every person I have ever served as pastor as much as in my own, it is this one. Because I think there are two kinds of people in the world. There are those who say yes, and there are those who don't. And those who don't, over time, gradually freeze in place. Gradually turn to stone. And that is not a judgment on anyone. We all do the best we can with the life we've been given. And sometimes we're both of those people. Sometimes we can say yes, sometimes we can't. But I will speak personally and say that every single time God has said, I want you to do fill in the blank. And even though I've been terrified out of my mind, if I said yes, and just sometimes in the babiest of steps said the yes over and over until the steps got bigger and bigger and I did whatever God wanted me to do, every single time resurrection came into my life. Every time. Amen. And every time I did not. Didn't mean God stopped loving me. It didn't mean I was a bad person. It just meant I didn't get to the life God had for me quite yet. Didn't quite get the resurrection God had planned for me. But with God, there's always another chance. Don't let fear stop you from saying yes. And that yes might be to all kinds of things. God might be really wanting you to step into taking over a new ministry or starting a new one. God might be wanting you to say yes to stepping back from a ministry and resting for a while. Right. God might be wanting you to delve into that grief you really don't want to touch. God might be wanting you to put the grief down and go find new joy. The yes is personal to each and every one of us because God knows every hair on our head and knows the yes that we need to say in every situation. And it's really, really important to remember that on the other side of every yes is resurrection, because that is God's end game. This passage in Philippians about Jesus, that part of Philippians is known as the great Christology, if you want to have fancy theological terms. It's what is held up in Christianity as the song of Christ. The song, Paul's song, that tells us the deepest part of Christ's nature. But you can take the girl out of the Baptist church. But you can't take the Baptist church out of the girl. And when I read that passage, I just think, oh, there's my Jesus. There's Jesus. He was the one who, throughout his entire life, no matter what it was that God said to do, Jesus' answer was always the same. Yes. It was yes even when he was crying that word through tears of blood. It was yes. But for us, the point was the resurrection.
All right.
I don't know about you, but I was raised to believe that Jesus died on the cross so that his blood would cover my sins. And if that is your theology today, that is your theology today. And that is, I wouldn't take that from anybody. So as I always say with all of my sermons, take what works for you and let go of the rest. Let the Holy Spirit lead you. Because over the years, my theology has changed, and it's very difficult, if not impossible, for me to believe anymore in a God who would require the sacrifice of anybody. Because I can't imagine any parent killing their child so that that child's blood could cover the sin of someone else. For me personally, that's very difficult. But here's what I do believe. That all those yeses Jesus said were so that we could all have resurrection. The religion was teaching in Jesus' day that if you were sick, it was because you sinned. And God said, Jesus, heal those people and heal them publicly so people will know. That's not how I work. And so Jesus said yes, and went around doing that all over the place. And God said, Jesus, there's people with leprosy that are being forced to go about in the world literally yelling everywhere they go, unclean, unclean, so that people would stay away from them. People forced to live in complete isolation. And God said, Jesus, tell them, nobody's unclean in my sight. Nobody. So Jesus said yes. And he touched those people and he healed them. And he restored them to community. And there were people who were using religion to abuse people, to keep them living in fear, to keep them living in poverty. And God said, Jesus, do something about that. So Jesus said, okay. And he went and he turned over the tables in the temple. And he said, this is not what religion, this is not what faith is supposed to be about. It's not about money. It's not about prosperity. It's not about following certain rules so you can go to heaven. It had become this tangled mess of money and power and politics. Mm-hmm. Boy. And Jesus said, no, this is not what religion is about. This is not what worship is about. God doesn't want that kind of worship. Worship is about loving your neighbor as yourself, and everyone's your neighbor. And it's about doing it in tangible, real ways that relieve suffering and give a life of dignity to everyone. So over and over again, Jesus said yes to doing all these things. And guess what happens when you say yes like that over and over and over again? Eventually you get in trouble with somebody.
All right.
Especially when you mess with the money. And that's what I believe led Jesus to the cross. He could have not done all those things. He could have said, oh, no, God, I'm going to get in trouble with somebody if I do that. Right. Someone's going to be mad. Someone's going to be offended. Some governor, some Roman politician. He just kept saying yes and doing it anyway. And he said yes all the way up to that point when finally he was just hanging on that cross, naked, and as we've been saying now for 8 weeks, naked, and I think he was at that point finally unafraid. He had lost everything, but he had gotten through all the pain, the degradation, the humiliation, the betrayal, the loss, and all he had left was his final yes. It's finished. And I think in that moment Jesus knew that was not God's end game. God's end game was resurrection. But for the resurrection to happen, Jesus had to say yes first in all those ways. And that's why he is the one I look to when I'm afraid. Realistic. Because fear exists. It never stopped Jesus, not once. And we are called to be like him. To not be afraid to say yes. Troy, to run an ad in a newspaper and say, hey, there's a big old church service for a bunch of gay people. In 1968, in a public newspaper. At his house, that's right. He said yes, because he said yes. We are here today. 5 people in 1981 got together, and in a time when people would make fun of them for daring to think that they could do church, they said yes, and because they did, we are here today. I don't know exactly who they were, but about 15 years ago now, or gosh, I've lost track of time, I think about 15 years ago, a group of people in this church had the courage to buy this land and this property and these buildings. And I'll bet they were terrified. Were they terrified, Charlie? I would have been, if I'd been the pastor, I would have said, I would have been terrified. But they did it. They said yes. And because they said yes, look what we have today. I could look around this sanctuary and see all the yeses sitting here. Charlie said yes when they asked him to play the guitar at the first service. And I'm sure he was terrified, but he said yes. Pilar says yes every single week, writing the liturgy and the children's lessons for our children's church. And I bet you were a little nervous about that at first. Yes? Gail. I'm sure she was terrified at the thought. She was charged with raising enough money to pay the mortgage for a whole year, year after year, for this church, so it could exist. And so she invented the rainbow ball. Were you scared of that, Gail? And Lou? A little scared? Oh, yeah. And Carmen, and Sandy, and Michael Trueblood, God rest his soul, all these people who did the rainbow ball for us all these years so we could be here today, they all said yes. Cindy, who said yes to being on the board. Carmen, who said yes to being on the board. Karen Little, who said yes to being on the board. All of our board members. There is no scarier thing on this earth when you're a part of a church than being on the board of directors. And they largely do so much work that is so in the background and so unsung. But if they weren't doing that work, I guarantee you, we could not be here tonight. But they keep saying yes. My wife, 8 years ago this Monday, said yes to sobriety.
Yes.
And one of my favorite stories is one of the places we love to worship in San Francisco. And City of Refuge is the home church, the church that Bishop Fludner, who's going to be our guest preacher, she started that church. And one of the last services we went to, there was this elderly lesbian couple, classic Butch femme couple, think in their 80s. And I don't remember, which one name do you remember?
Dr. Lucky.
Dr. Lucky. And Dr. Lucky, I coveted her wardrobe. Man, she was a show dresser. So I'll never forget, we were about to leave one day. And actually, Dr. Lucky and her wife were leaving ahead of us. And out of the blue, Dr. Lucky, you opened it. And we were like, okay. And over time, we realized she opened it. If Sarah Helen hadn't said yes to sobriety, we never would have gotten together.
Right.
If we hadn't gotten together, I don't know that I'd have the courage to continue being a pastor. And if she hadn't opened it, we wouldn't have gotten in the car and driven God knows how many thousands of miles here.
And that 22-year-old car. Hallelujah.
That's right, our 22-year-old car. Now there's a courageous yes, let me tell you. But because she said yes, for 8 years I have learned so much wisdom and spiritual depth from lessons of sobriety and recovery. And my life has been so enriched, and so has the life of this church, because she said yes. And let me tell you, saying yes one day at a time takes a lot of courage. There are yeses all in this room. I know there are. And I also know there are more to be said. I'm sure there are a lot of personal yeses to be said. And only you know what those are. And I know what my own are. And I'm going to keep looking to Jesus for the courage to keep saying yes. But let me tell you, there's one really big yes we all have in front of us. I did a lot of work on the history of this church for this anniversary celebration. And in doing the research I did, I discovered something very interesting. This church has never had, in its 35-year history, not once has it had a pastor in 6 years. Not 6 years and a month, not 6.5 years, or 6 3/4 years, exactly 6 years.
Break that mark.
Yeah.
8 months. I didn't say woo-woo yet. I remember when this church called me to be the pastor, and, well, actually when I was thinking about candidating. And churches, they always send you a packet, you know, to be oppressive, basically, is the job. And in that packet of information, there was a lot of demographic information about the congregation, because the pastoral search team had done a study of the demographics of the church. And one of the statistics that I thought was really interesting, I said, honey, look at this. There's only just like a very small handful of people at this church who have been here longer than 5 years. I'm very open to that. And in doing the research for this history of this church, I think there's something in the DNA of this church. I don't know where it started or why it is, but there's something about 5 that's really scary. We can't go past 5, can't get to past 6. But guess what? Here! And we've got some really big yeses ahead of us.
Yes, we do.
Especially now.
Amen.
Churches, communities of faith are going to have to be out there in big, scary ways, saying, we will not allow anyone to be demonized.
That's right.
I tell you what, folks, if there's a Muslim registry, I'm going to be the first one in line to sign up as a Muslim.
Hallelujah.
I'm not going to let that happen in this country without my protest, because I believe that is what Jesus would have me to do.
Yes.
And when they try to take LGBT rights away, if that happens, and when conversion therapy starts to become the law of the land, if that happens, because there are a lot of folks that want that, guess who's going to be on the front line saying, yes, God, we're going to fight that. Start to be targeted because it's already happening in 2 weeks. Hasn't even been 2 weeks yet. And I'm not laying blame for this on anybody. I'm not doing that. I'm just saying it's a reality. It's happening. Whoever it is that's causing it, it is happening. And we who are followers of Jesus have got to fight it. As your pastor, that is my belief. And we've got to fight it by loving our neighbor, those who are different from us, those who voted differently from us, those who live differently from us. We have got to love one another. We may never agree with one another, but we've got to love one another in practical ways that ensure that life in our country is a life of dignity for all people. That is what Jesus came and died and resurrected for. And that is the yes that God needs from us now. And whatever your yes is tonight, there's something.
What page are we on?
Whatever your yes is tonight, whatever God is calling out to you, hear and listen and embrace. Only you can know what that is. But corporately, as a church, I believe on the other side of that, I think there shouldn't be a single Sunday where there is a backside in every single chair in this room.
Yes.
That's why we got these chairs. Because there's a lot of backsides that need what this church offers, yes?
Yes.
And hearts too, by the way. I think that we should have a family ministry full of families and little children.
Amen.
Yes.
Why don't we? Because nobody has said yes yet to taking it and running with it and leading it in the huge way it's going to take to make that happen. That's how ministries grow and that's how they flourish. Somebody says yes in a really big way. We don't have that school yet that I hope to have. Maybe even, Sarah Helen's going to kill me for this, a residence for LGBT young people that are on the street. Believe me, she wants that room too. She just knows how complicated it is.
That's right.
Why don't we have a job training program that lift people out of poverty? But each and every one of them takes somebody saying yes. All of them. And so my prayer for all of us is that as a church, we will say, we're not going to be stopped by this bizarre obstacle. It doesn't have to be a part of our DNA. Let it go. Let it go, let it go, as the song says. Let it go. Because I'm not going anywhere. Sarah Helen's not going anywhere. I hope you're not going anywhere. And I hope we're going to just keep going into the future, saying yes in all the ways that God is going to keep asking us to say yes. I don't know if you've been here for the past sermon series called Naked and Unafraid. It's been based on this book by Brian McLaren called Naked Spirituality. And in this book, it's full of spiritual practices for different seasons in our lives. And we have been doing these spiritual practices every Sunday. And each practice has been based on one word. And tonight, we want to invite you to go into the fullness of nakedity. Okay, we're jealous? We have in this sanctuary, because of Justin and Jeremiah's creativity and hard work, we have altars all over this room. I'm going to take you on a little tour. But before I do that, I want to invite you to say yes to God tonight. To the desire of God's heart that you believe that you are a called spiritual person. So often we who are in this room struggle to believe we even have the right to get anywhere near God, when God the whole time is saying, I want you, come and be a part of me. Come abide in me, I want to abide in you. And sometimes that's the very first place to start, to actually say, wow, I am a child of God, I am a spiritual person, I have a spiritual calling in this world. Because no matter who you are tonight, that is what's true. And sometimes the very first yes you can say is just, God, this is where I am right now. So wherever you are right now, there is an altar for you in this room. So go with me, if you will, please, just for a moment, with your eyes. This altar is called Here. This was the very first word that we took a look at when we started this series. This is the altar where if you were in a place in your life where you are just struggling to get it, that God is always right here with you, wherever you are. This altar is for you. If you want to just meditate on being in the present moment, here with God is saying, I really want you to live more in a place of gratitude. This altar is for you. Come and spend time here. Write on this paper the things you're grateful for, or how you want to be living from a place of gratitude more. And every one of these altars, you will see the readings from Brian McLaren's book that we used every Sunday. If you would like to meditate on that. Passing the pictures of our many years. It's called When. Remember this one?
Yes.
When God. Remember that? Say it. When God. When are you going to make change in my life I want? This altar is for you. Come and sit and write in big letters or whatever you want to do. Write your prayer. When, God. You're the only one who ever has to see it. As for our loved ones who passed away, we have this board that Justin made of all the names that were on those prayer lanterns. If you would like to come and remember someone you've lost, or just ask God the question, why? This altar and the candles on it are for you. Okay. This altar is please. This is about praying for other people. And remember, we had an altar where you could pray. This is where we wrote out our prayers to God. Of God, these are the ways we need help. And then we put them in the mailbox. Don't forget to put the flag up. And you'll see all the prayers that we shared are still in here from a few Sundays ago. And finally, there's one new altar. This, what's that? Oh, behold, I missed behold. Oh my goodness. This altar right here. Behold. Behold the beauty in the world. Behold God's beauty in each one of us. This has pictures from that beautiful media presentation we had. And then this is our new altar. This one, this is the yes altar. This is where we say yes to God in the ways that we feel MCCPB is being called, the ways the altar call. Now, if you grew up in the evangelical church, you know that this doesn't look like our traditional altar call by any means. We're going to have that tomorrow night. This is more the Catholic style, MCC style altar call. So we're going to lower the lights, and Jason DeMarco are going to sing, and we just invite you to spend time at the altar that your soul calls you to this evening, and spend time with God there. You can do more than one altar if you want, but go wherever you like. Light candles, pray, write, whatever you'd like to do. But I hope you will all at one point come and visit this altar last. And you can write on here, what do you think MCCPB needs to say yes to? What new thing do you think God is calling us to? Write it on here, and I think these are sticky, right, Ruthie?
Yes, they are.
You just peel the back off and stick it on our yes board. And we're going to hang this on the wall too to go with all of our pictures to say this is the way we are saying yes to God. So this is our altar call for this evening. Please say yes in the ways that the Spirit leads you this evening. And as you do so, open your heart, please, to the reality that God is calling you to be your full, spiritual, naked self, with God who's with you and with me.